James Cameron is famously known to be a very brutal and honest and blunt director to work for when it comes to different films that he has made in the past. And in this interview that we're going to be taking a look at, there is no exception to that whatsoever, where he goes in on Leonardo DiCaprio, completely exposing how much of a diva he was, especially in the past when it came to some of the films in his career. And James Cameron does not hold back. So let's get into all of this and see what is going on here. Titanic director says diva-like attitude almost cost Leonardo DiCaprio his iconic role, which is hilarious because when you start to look at this interview and everything else, you see that James Cameron, he does not put up with any BS whatsoever. And I was actually watching this really interesting show that it's called The Movies That Made Us, or The Films That Made Us. I can't remember which one it is, but I was watching this episode of Aliens where it was talking about James Cameron and how he made Aliens and everything else, and so many of the people that were part of the cast and crew were like, yeah, the number one rule is that you don't tell James Cameron no. Actually, I think technically that was number 2 rule, but you know, the point still stands. You don't tell James Cameron no's when it comes to different things. But let's get into this and see what James Cameron has to say about Leonardo DiCaprio in this very interesting interview.
I'm waiting to meet an actor, right? And I look around and all the women in the entire office are in the meeting for some reason. Like there's a female executive producer, okay, fine. But our accountant, why was she in the meeting?
All the women were flocking in to meet Leonardo DiCaprio.
They just all wanted to meet Leo. It was hysterical. I looked around and I went, I think I already know the answer to the question here. So Leo came in, of course, charmed everybody.
He's talking about the audition that he was going to do with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Myself included. And I said, all right, well, let's see what your chemistry is like with Kate. So he comes in a couple of days later, and I've got the camera set up to record the video. He didn't know he was going to test. He came in, he thought it was another meeting to meet Kate. And I said, okay, so we'll just go in the next room, and we'll just, we'll run some lines, and I'll video it. And he said, you mean I'm reading? And I said, yeah. He said, oh, I don't read. And I said, well, I shook his hand. I said, well, thanks for coming by.
Oh, man. And look, I definitely have my problems with James Cameron and some of the things that obviously he does and some of the films that he's made. But, man, I love just how brutal he is sometimes and just how savage he is. He does not put up with any BS. And, man, I don't know. There's a part of me that really appreciates that and finds it very entertaining.
He said, wait. You mean if I don't read, I don't get the part? Just like that? And I said, oh, yeah. Come on. This is like a giant movie. It's going to take 2 years of my life, and you'll be gone doing 5 other things while I'm doing post-production and all the model work and everything. So I'm not going to fuck it up by making the wrong decision in casting. So you're going to read or you're not going to get the part. You're like, oh, okay. So he comes in, and
So it's very interesting just hearing Leonardo DiCaprio's, the way that he's conducting himself, being very diva-like as he talks about here and everything else, and James Cameron just kind of puts an end to that very fast.
He's like every ounce of his entire being is just so, negative, right up until I said action, and then he turned into Jack. And Kate just lit up, and they went into this whole thing, and he played the scene. Dark clouds had opened up, and a ray of sun came down and lit up Jack. I'm like, all right, he's the guy. So then I finally get the studio to agree to it. Then Leonardo comes back in and he says, my dad and I have been talking about the script, and we really think it needs this and this and this and this. And he wanted to have some affliction or some problem.
And what he talks about here is very, very interesting, and I just want to close on this little bit here that he talks about, because this really just shows that James Cameron really is a master of filmmaking when it comes to making films that people love.
Or some traumatic thing from the past, and I said, look, you've done all these great characters that all have a problem, whether it's addiction or whatever it is. I said, you got to learn how to hold the center and not have all that stuff. This isn't Richard III. When you can do what, Jimmy Stewart did or Gregory Peck did, they just fucking stood there. They didn't have a limp or a lisp or whatever. Then you'll be ready for this, but I'm thinking you're not ready. Because What I'm talking about is actually much harder. Those things are easier. Those are props, those are crutches. What I'm talking about is much harder, and you're probably not quite ready for it.
Which is very, very cool and very, very true. And it's very interesting to hear him break this down for Leonardo DiCaprio. And basically, Leonardo DiCaprio kind of learned a lot from James Cameron and everything else, and how he just started to realize, oh, you know, you need to be an actual, like, you can't just be this diva-like type of person, especially around people like James Cameron, who is definitely part of kind of that old guard of Hollywood, which is something that I do appreciate. And I am looking forward to the next Avatar film that's going to be coming out. So with all of that being said, let me know what you think about this in the comments below. What do you think about what James Cameron says about Leonardo DiCaprio here? I find it to be very interesting to see the dichotomy between these two people. With that being said, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll talk to you all in another video very soon.